So, all right, so let's get into this story about Sinners because apparently, since the success of Sinners, everybody got a damn opinion. Everybody's got something to say about it, and for the most part, it's like yes, it's doing relatively well at the box office. It, I believe, has a 90. It's in the 90s in regards of like Rotten Tomatoes. Cinema Score, I believe, where they said this is the first film in years that's R-rated and an original IP that has gotten, full high grade in regards of, their cinema score. So congratulations to Sinners for that. But of course, when Black people get to have a moment where we can't celebrate and have, great, nice things, and it's not at the behest of Black trauma, which is what it seemed like. Y'all want us to be oppressed. Y'all want us to be slaves. Y'all want to be those sort of things. When we finally get a movie that doesn't play into those tropes, clear folks and some of you Latinos get mad. And so y'all can stay mad because, and the one thing I will say about this, I love when the white allies jump in, like Ben Stiller and most recently Patrick Schwarzenegger, because they came to the defense of the movie and even called out Variety over their little backhanded, shady comment regarding Sinners. And if y'all remember, when I was first started talking about Sinners last week, I believe it was the Friday episode, and then also I did another episode talking about, every time I'm talking about Sinners, I mention that, and in regards to the box office stuff, I've said that why does it feel like this is a racial microaggression, especially when it came from the Hollywood Reporter, the Variety one, also was a surprise upset towards Minecraft. Minecraft has already made $700 million worldwide. What freaking upset? In the past 3 weeks, it's made more money than anybody even expected, especially when the movie ain't even all that good. But the minute we get a movie that actually is good, that's got a lot of buzz, a lot of people talking, and a lot of people going to the movies to see it because of the word of mouth and all the conversations that's happening. So I'll say that's even the greatest thing about this film is that it's got a lot of people talking. And I'm excited that it's got a lot of people talking at this point, and it's got a lot of people interested. So when I went to go see the movie yesterday for a second time, my theater was a lot more packed. When I went on Friday, it wasn't a lot of people, I guess, because it was early. But even then, yesterday, I went early. I went to a 12 p.m. showing, and it was a lot of people in there. It was a lot of Black folks, excuse me, rightfully so. But it was a couple of white people that showed up to come and see it too. So it was relatively mixed. So now, in addition to all of that, Patrick Schwarzenegger actually, well, I'll go with Ben Stiller first. And people always said that Ben Stiller's has always had an invite to the cookout because he came and said what he said. And you know what? A lot of times when white people, so it was like we can come out and say, we people of color say stuff till we blue in the face. Y'all don't want to hear it because y'all don't want to hear that come from us. But when one of y'all own check you, then all of a sudden, a lot of y'all wake up. So this is why we appreciate when the allies jump in, because y'all don't never want to listen. Just like a lot of y'all got mad when Kamala Harris was like, I didn't want to say, I told you how. And people was getting all pissed off about it. Why the fuck? Why y'all getting mad? Why you mad, though? Why you mad, though? She tried to tell y'all ain't want to hear it. But then again, y'all didn't really push y'all narrative enough. But then again, it doesn't really matter how hard y'all push something. Y'all probably ain't going to want to hear it regardless. But when one of y'all own come out and be like, yeah, maybe y'all need to listen, then y'all want to pay attention because it's from your own. We know how it is. Just call it for what it is. So Ben Stiller and Patrick Schwarzenegger are just some of the notable names that pushed back against Variety after the event. The entertainment outlet, I should say, posted a tweet that appeared to minimize the opening weekend box office success of Ryan Coogler's Sinners. They said the following, quote, Sinners has amassed $61 million in its global debut. The outlet tweeted alongside a link to an article about the weekend's box office results. It's a great result for an original R-rated horror film, yet the Warner Brothers release has a 90-minute budget price tag before global marketing expenses, so profitability remain a ways away. A ways? What do you mean? First of all, it's $61 million that is grossed. The movie has a 90-minute budget. I'm guessing that maybe the marketing probably is about $25 million. We can recoup all that money by the end of the month. And plus, y'all seem to forget this. There's a such thing as VOD. They're streaming. People, you don't think people are going to actually, that don't want to go to the movies and sit and watch an almost 3-hour film? Well, it's 2 hours and 18 minutes, give or take. You don't think that people are going to actually, when it comes out on digital, that they're not going to rent the movie and then proceed and profits will go to that? Which in 25 years, I believe, Ryan Coogler gets, all of that back. He gets the, all the back end money, and he actually gets the rights to Sinners, I believe, in 25 years. So he has that excellent deal. But nobody's talking about that. That someone actually gets the rights to their own film back after, a quarter of a century. So then after they said what they said, because I do have that tweet where I want to show y'all literally what this ding ding said. If it could just scroll on by here. So that's the post. And then Ben Stiller went and said, in what universe does a $60 million opening for an original studio movie warrant this headline? Which, of course, got a lot of people commenting. And then Patrick Schwarzenegger jumped in and said, it's opening weekend. Now, other notable names called out the outlet with some, including the Blacklist, Franklin Leonard, pointing out this. He said, I wonder if at Variety covered Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which made 10% less at the domestic box office on 10% more theaters pre-pandemic and at the same budget with a similar deal structure in the same way. So y'all always so quick to put so much on the backs of blacks. You always expect high expectations when it comes to black original IP that we all gotta rush and tap dance and do and jump through fiery hoops and things so that when we can get an iota of the success that white people just skate by on. And that's what they were talking about. So Quentin Tarantino come out with a flop and y'all don't give the same energy. And I'm not saying his movie, well, it did make 10% less, as they said, of the budget. But y'all didn't have that same energy when it comes to that. But whenever it comes to black folks, y'all want to put extra seasoning on the situation. And then Sean Fennessy came out and said this. He said, there is 0% chance Sinners will be unprofitable over time. PVOD numbers, which are not made publicly available alone, will push it past break even. He also said that, because I got to open it now because it cuts off. Studios are incentivized to make the final tally opaque, especially when participation is a factor. There's a massive financial literacy issue in box office and film reporting and the ways in which bad or context-free info is regurgitated. So, yeah, like I said, it's always different when it comes to people of color. And then Van Lathan, who y'all know, I like Van Lathan. He's formerly of TMZ, got his own podcast. And, they dragged his behind over that recent thing when he went against Kamala Harris, when Kamala Harris went and said what she said in that meeting, which was the I told you so situation. I was like, oh, child, they done scalped him. He said they spanked his big ass, and he said big ass. So I'm not just making that up. And then he also said, so Van Lathan not going anywhere. Well, Van not going anywhere, Lathan. That's the only Van I like. I don't like the other one, Van Jones, that old lisping queen, that over there at CNN. I don't like her. So now this Van said, why y'all doing this? Well, you know why they doing it. And then another person posted, Variety when it's time. Wait, they said, because I got to show y'all this. This is funny. So they said, Variety when it's time to slander minorities. It's like, yeah, they putting up your dukes because, that's Henry Cavill, which I thought was pretty funny. Well, first of all, I like Henry Cavill in this damn movie. But before we get to the rest, okay, so another one says, someone pointed out a couple of months ago how big of a push there is on here to point out how unprofitable movies are. Now I can't unsee it. Well, I've been saying that whenever it comes to black folks, I want something to fail. How many times have black people have heard, or black people will tell you stories in Hollywood where they'll say, oh, we've been told many a times that black people cannot sell movies overseas, that we're not bankable, we're not profitable. This is what white people behind the scenes, marketers, whatever the case is, will tell people of color, oh, they don't care about your films. Mind you, white people act like they the only damn demographic that exists on this earth. And it's not, and we already know that's not the case. Hence why we got a moron in the White House trying to get a bunch of people to get out here and have more kids, and somebody they're gonna give y'all $5,000 and like bunch of dummies, y'all gonna believe it. But once the kids get in, they give you their $5,000. How's that going to keep up with the fact that you got to raise that child along with the other children you have? It's not like y'all going to keep getting like a stipend. That's a one-time situation. Y'all need to look beyond what's in front of you and see what the real scam is in all of this. So another person said, this is such a bizarre headline. The film's cost is modest by studio standards, and it just had a huge opening. It's going to be fine. It's been in theaters for 3 whole days. It doesn't need to turn a profit just yet. Exactly. And I think the real conversation is, how is it going to work after Like, what's week 2 going to be like? How far down the rabbit hole is it going to drop? That's what we should be focusing on, not necessarily opening weekend. We should see how it's going to do next week, because there's a couple of movies coming out. There's damn, I forgot the name of that. There's a horror movie coming out. There's also The Accountant 2. I forgot the name of the horror movie, but it's with the kid from Love Victor and a bunch of things where they go to this house based off a video game. Name escapes me right now. But that's supposed to come out this week. The Accountant 2 is supposed to come out this week. We'll see how well those movies do against up against Sinners. So we won't know until then. But last but certainly not least, I want to get to this TikTok video. So this is the video that kind of like just irked my nerve. So there's this dude on TikTok by the name of the Storytime Guy who was like, "Oh, I love Sinners," but which always lets you know that they don't particularly care for it. Here was his issues, and his issues was he was saying he basically tried to devalue Sinners as nothing more than a ripoff of From Dusk Till Dawn. Now, I will say this. Ryan Coogler, in many interviews, if y'all actually stop running off with y'all mouths and actually do the research, Google is y'all friend. I sat up here and I watched a lot of the Sinners interviews that Ryan Coogler was doing alongside Michael B. Jordan and Haley Steinfeld, because those were the three that were just running around doing a lot of the interviews and promoting of the film. He talked about like a lot of his inspiration. He said that I believe From Dusk Till Dawn was an inspiration for the film. Also, he said The Faculty. He also mentioned 2 John Carpenter movies. He might have mentioned more, but the ones I remember off the top of my head is 2 movies that I absolutely love that are John Carpenter movies. And I watched one of them the other day, and that would be Assault from Precinct 13, and a movie another film that he remade, John Carpenter, that is like one of my all-time favorite movies from 1982, and I've seen it like 100 times already, and that's The Thing. So basically, yes, there are similarities between From Dusk Till Dawn and the other movie and Sinners, which would be they both take place on one night in a confined space. That would be they had the titty twister in From Dusk Till Dawn, and in this film they had this slaughterhouse that they turned into a juke joint because they had that money that they stole from the Irish and the Italians from Chicago, which is why they came back to Mississippi. So there's similarities in that. Other than that, it's a completely different story, but I'll break all that down once y'all watch this clip, because I want y'all to hear what this dude had to say, because it was a full-on cackle, and then we'll come back and talk. Let me make sure I got the audio on.
I love the movie Sinners, but ... Part 1. There will be spoilers. I love the movie Sinners, but it's literally the plot of From Dusk Till Dawn. 2 criminal brothers head down south to start new lives. While down south, they are trapped in a building that's in the middle of nowhere, and they find themselves surrounded by vampires. One of the brothers is seduced by a beautiful vampire temptress and gets turned into a vampire. The other brother, who's a straight shooter, leads a group of survivors to survive the night until dawn. And throughout the movie, we have discussions about religion, faith, and family. In the final climactic battle of this movie, there's a huge fight between the survivors and the vampires. The Asian character in this movie sacrifices himself to protect their family. One of the characters in this movie who is turned begs their loved one to end their life, and with tears in their eyes, they do. And after killing all the vampires via sunlight, the only 2 survivors are the brother and the hopeful youth. The hopeful youth whose father was a preacher. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here because I follow people in the horror community. No one's talking about this. It's insane. There is one fucking movie that Sinners owes everything to, and it's not fucking Puss in Boots. It's goddamn From Dusk Till Dawn. And like, I'm not saying Nosferatu, Dracula, Sinners, From Dusk Till Dawn, but I will say that Ryan Coogler needs to firmly address that he was inspired by a Latin American vampire movie because we are owed our flowers. Also, Ryan, I saw that tamale story you put in the movie. Where's the fucking Latino extras? Come on, Ryan, you're so good at putting Latinos in your movie. What the fuck happened here? You don't put Latinos in the movie and you steal from the biggest Latino vampire movie? Come on, man, that's a bad look. I don't think this guy liked this movie at all. I think he might be a racist. Loving something does not excuse you turning a blind eye to its flaws. Acknowledging and discussing the flaws of something you love is healthy and leads to a better relationship. Hope you enjoyed the video, everyone. Tune in tomorrow. We're going to be talking about how the vampires in the movie Sinners don't make any fucking sense. Have a magical day, everyone. I I love the movie Sinners.
Well, it's like the movies and the vampires in the movie make no effing sense. I don't know what he actually means by that because the vampires in the movies do make perfect sense. The vampire, I forget his name. I think it's Remick. That's played by Jack O'Connell. And here's the weird part. His main reasoning for being a vampire, he's like, I'm going around like he's biting people, all this other stuff. He's like, I'm doing it to spread love. Like he's a hippie in a way, in his mindset, which is completely different. And what I don't understand is when it comes to vampire lore, and I guess you're not a writer, so you don't understand this, you can make any kind of if you are someone who writes and creates your own project, you can do whatever the hell you want with your own vampires as long as you stick to the lore that you've created. So you don't have to follow the vampires of Underworld or Nosferatu or Bram Stoker's Dracula or 30 Days of Night. No one says that you have to follow exactly that. You can make up whatever lore that you want to make up in your own world as long as it makes sense to and fits within the confines of the lore that you've created. So I don't know what the hell this guy's talking about. And then on top of that, when he went and said, oh, you could have put Latinos in the movie. Historically speaking, were there Latinos that existed in the South during that time? I highly doubt it. Now, if you want to talk about the Chinese, here's the thing. This is why I say to people, y'all need to read a history book or Google is your friend. There was a huge demographic of Chinese people that existed in the South in the 30s, especially because they were they were like big Christians. So they were like deeply religious, very Christian leaning. I mean, if you watch in the scene with, damn, I forgot her name. The girl, the Asian woman and her husband, Bo. I remember Bo, but I forgot the wife's name. I think her name was Grace or something or another. She wears a cross around her neck, which basically goes to show that, yes, her religion is Christianity, Catholicism. So, yes, there were a lot of Asian Catholics that existed in the 30s. This is why I always tell people, instead of y'all getting on social media and running on with y'all damn mouths just because y'all want a moment on TikTok, and I saw what you did, sir. If you look at the damn thing on the side, y'all, you see it says comments are turned off, right? Because he knew that based off of what he was saying, they was going to eat his ass up in them damn comments, and rightfully so. So I don't know why you run around here making, saying stuff if you don't even know what it is that you're talking about. But of course, with that, that's on the top of the head. But I'm gonna read you what I wrote on Facebook when I saw the video earlier, because a friend of mine, Ron, sent it to me because he said we were talking earlier, and this was last night. I was like, wait, who's out here complaining about Sinners? And he said it was some guy that was on there, and he said, I'm going to post the video up tomorrow, which is today, and I'm going to go in and read him down to the floor. And that was the video, the one I just showed y'all. So what I wrote is this, because it was a lie. So I said, this guy has no idea what he's talking about and missed the entire point of the story Ryan was trying to tell. It's not some simple vampire movie that he claims rips off From Dusk Till Dawn, which I had to laugh when he called it a Latino vampire movie. Just because Latinos were in it doesn't make it a Latino film. In fact, the film centers on two white brothers who kill Aztec vampires. The script was also written by a clear person. Lest we forget, Quentin Tarantino wrote the damn script, and yes, it was directed by Robert Rodriguez, but technically he's directing off of a script that was written by somebody else, so it wasn't Robert Rodriguez's movie, and the movie did not center on Latinos. It was about two white brothers who were robbers and criminals who basically take a family hostage, a white man with his white daughter and an Asian brother. They end up at the titty twister and all hell breaks loose. So yeah, the villains were Latino. They were not the center point of the film. Do y'all not watch movies and actually pay attention to the story that you're watching, or y'all just be looking at things where you've seen Salma Hayek being sultry, Quentin Tarantino drinking champagne from her damn foot, and then you seeing people getting killed? That's all y'all pay attention to? Y'all don't pay attention to the story? But you can't lead, you can lead the horse to the water, but like they say, you can't make him drink. So now, if he knew his history, he would know that there was a huge, as I said, Asian Christian population that existed in the South at the time. If he actually watched the many interviews that Ryan has done, he mentions From Dusk Till Dawn as one of the film's inspirations. In fact, he mentioned many horror films that take place in one location on one night, including John Carpenter's The Thing and Assault on Precinct 13, two movies that existed long before Quentin Tarantino directed his first film. And lest we forget, while there are definitely similarities with both films, From Dusk Till Dawn wasn't a period piece. It wasn't a musical. It wasn't a commentary on race. They happened to come upon the vampires in From Dusk Till Dawn by bad luck. In Sinners, they attracted the vampires because from Sammy's music. Vampires had to be invited in, and the movie was much, had much deeper vampire lore. And there was much more deeper vampire lore, I will say, in Sinners than there was in From Dusk Till Dawn. So for you to sit up here and make this comment about Ryan disrespecting the Latin community and expecting a black filmmaker to give Latinos opportunities, which, by the way, he did in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, since y'all seem to have amnesia when it comes to when Ryan puts people in his films. You know damn well y'all don't have the same energy for when it comes, to the white filmmakers versus black filmmakers. And y'all be the first ones, and I don't want to make this political, but since y'all decided to go there with politics and the racism, because y'all want to always do that, whenever black people get a moment where it's like, yes, let's make a movie for us, by us, to celebrate us, and the fact of the movie is deep, it's about colonization, it's about music, the fact that a lot of the music that comes from Africa, it was brought over on those slave ships into America. And then there's this one scene where Delroy Lindo's character is in the car and he's telling the story about the guys that he sees on the side of the road that were the prisoners that was digging up the side of the road. And he basically was telling like this story about this guy where he won all this money, and then he pulled out all the money to buy a ticket because he was leaving the town to go somewhere else. These white Klansmen came across him. They lynched him up. They made up this story about how he stole his money and robbed this white man. And then, of course, because it's a ninja, they believed it. So they could say anything. And this is things that happen all the time. And then you see this part where Delroy Lindo's character goes, like it was the pain that he felt. And then he takes the pain and then goes, like he does. Then he turns that into music. And that is what black people have always had to do. When the back is against the wall, when we are resilient in certain situations, we turn our pain into art. We turn our pain into music. And that is the story that Ryan, one of the many stories, because it's a lot, and it's a lot you got to pick of the layers you got to pull back and you got to dig deep in that he was conveying with this story. So for this big-headed dingbat to not get that, that's a you issue, not a us issue. And why is it always that when it comes to black folks, we always got to do the heavy lifting and always invite every demographic? Everybody got to get a part in the damn movie. Everybody got to have a situation. There's one scene that I will say, and I'm inspired because I want to write a script on this. The one scene that I loved in that film that I'm like, oh my God, we need something to kind of dig deep in that. The scene when you get Jack O'Connell's character, who we find out is running away from these Native American vampire hunters. We need a movie based around them. Because I'm like, indigenous Native American vampire hunters going after and killing them. Like, we ain't never seen nothing like that. Now, that whole scene, that one little small scene, I was like, bitch, we need a whole movie around that. We don't need a story. I've seen other people say that we need a movie about a smoking stack when they went to Chicago. I was like, no, we don't need that. Their story was what their story was, and we got enough. But if you do a story that was based off of other things that was in the movie, particularly like the Native American vampire hunters, I'm like, that would be a cool concept, because we don't get enough stuff regarding Native Americans except the stereotypes that y'all want to incorporate in stuff like those Taylor Sheridan shows. But to wrap all this up, for you to make the comments that you made, like I said, I would love for y'all to have the same energy around these white directors and things the way y'all do around black folks. The minute that black people get a movie that we come up with and Brian Coogler has the power to make his passion project, then all of a sudden, why are we not included? Why we didn't get a scene? Why we always got to be the ones that give y'all parts? There's how many white programs they got to run around y'all, and quiet as it's kept, a lot of y'all be trying to act like y'all white any goddamn way. So why not assimilate? That's what y'all like to do anyway. I mean, isn't that why y'all voted for Trump? Because you thought y'all was going to get that assimilation of whiteness or close proximity to whiteness, and you see where y'all ended up. Y'all getting deported. So don't get me started on this foolishness, because, a lot of y'all don't like when I be out here telling the truth or putting that, going into FAFO mode or showing the mirror up to y'all, because y'all got mad when Kamala Harris said, I told you so, but she did try to tell y'all, but y'all thought, putting some fascist moron in. But anyway, let's not get into politics, because I already know how I feel about that idiot that's pretty much dismantling everything. But this is quiet as it's kept. This has been going around for the past 4 decades that a lot of this has been going on. Because this is one kid that was from China that really went in and started spilling tea about how our government is fattening their pockets while y'all just getting fat. And they've been doing that for 4 decades. So if y'all gonna come in and be and yeah, so to wrap this up, no one's saying that, okay, if you go and criticize the movie, that means you're racist or whatever the case is, because I don't like to go into that whole situation. There needs to be a valid reason as to why this movie you didn't like it. And to me, I just feel like the people who are non-melanated, a lot of y'all criticisms just does not add up, and it just doesn't make sense to me because you're not getting it. I even heard one person say that they need to cut back a bit on the music. Like there was one sequence when Sammy is playing the guitar, and that sequence with the break dancing and the hip hop, and then you bring in all these other different elements, it didn't work for them. I'm like, you're missing the point. That is basically saying like how powerful music is and how the music that came from Africa, how it has morphed into these different genres of music, throughout the decades, and how the powerfulness of Sammy when he's playing that guitar and his voice has pierced the veil between the real world and between good and evil, and how he attracts his voice, the music attracts this vampire to come to him and basically want what he has. Because there's a scene in the film where I'm with Jack O'Connor, I'm just calling him by his real name because I can't remember his movie name, where he says, I want your stories, I want your music. So colonization, how white people have taken music, which Beyonce pretty much pointed out to y'all on Cowboy Carter, but y'all didn't want to hear it. And shout out to her, because I believe her tour starts next week, where he was like, well, I want to take away from, the fact of how rock and roll stems from, blues, that comes from us. Country music comes from us. It stems from blues and rock and all those different genres of music. How y'all taking it. And there's even a line in the film where they say, oh, they like what we do. They like the music. They just don't like who it comes from. And that's the blues music. They don't like when blues come from black folks, but they like the music. They be up in there stomping their feet and almost be on key with the rhythm, but they don't like who the messenger is. So shout out to all those white folks like Patrick Schwarzenegger and Ben Stiller and so many others who have come to the defense and really called out the Hollywood Reporter and a lot of these people that are coming out with their microaggressions. It is like, and this also goes to show the lack of diversity that they have in a lot of these spaces, particularly in media and a lot of these places, because when y'all speak on these films, we ain't stupid. Because, a lot of us folks of color have been trained to read between the lines when y'all say something. So you're not as clever as y'all think. And we're going to keep calling you out on it, including myself. So I want to hear from y'all. What did y'all think of this story? Do you agree that, yeah, there's been a lot of microaggressions, a lot of little low-key shade, and I feel like a lot of times when it comes to the vampire thing, it was like vampires have always been a metaphor for something bigger. This was a social commentary, a horror film swathed in a lot of social commentary. I will say my only criticism with Sinners, before I wrap this up, was that the vampire stuff felt a little rushed because we spent way too much time building up the story, which I was all for the original story. Like, I like hanging out with these characters and getting to know them and building the world and the stories. And I liked hearing all of that. But I wanted more vampire stuff. I wanted more kills. I wanted more action. And I feel like Ryan Coogler didn't give us enough of that. So that's my only critique. Other than that, I love the movie. So I want to hear from you guys. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.